Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Preparing for this episode, I was like, you know what? The offseason wasn't feeling as hyped going into this episode as I probably thought I would be. But actually going through everything that happened since last episode, it really puts in perspective how much the Dolphins actually did. And there's a lot to be excited about. And I'm actually surprised of how well the offseason has gone for this team. And the draft hasn't even happened yet. And I think it is a little bit more of an under-the-radar offseason. But I still really like a lot of the players that they acquired through free agency. I like them a lot. And obviously some of the trades. I mean, we discussed that on last week's episode. The Shaq Lawson McKinney trade is a really good trade, and I think really improved the team. And a lot of the things they did this offseason, I'm really, really, really happy about as a fan. So let's get to this first news story. I don't know if we talked about this last week. We might have, but I don't think we did. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins to re-sign linebacker Vince Biegel. The Dolphins will re-sign Vince Biegel. Obviously, he finished 2019, which was a year that got a lot of Dolphins fans, especially hardcore fans, excited about him. He had 2.5 sacks, 59 tackles, and he had the 1 interception. I've never been over the moon about Vince Biegel. I like him. He's a good starter. I think that's his ceiling, is just a good starter. I don't think he'll ever become a superstar or anything like that. He's one of those fan favorite, solid starter, floor, solid rotational guy and situational guy. But I think his ceiling is a guy who can go out there for all 3 downs and give you good minutes. And it was a good, it was a good signing. Get him back. Hopefully he develops into the player that the organization thinks he can develop into. And every time he's been on the field, he has really never messed up. He was never a detriment to the team. He was always a positive, and I think that's the best thing you can say about Vince. And like I said, his ceiling might not be superstardom or Pro Bowl caliber, but his ceiling is a starter in this league that can give you, like I said, a good minutes on all 3 downs. So hopefully we can get a healthy Vince Biegel moving forward. I want to get all of these small ones out of the way first. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, as all of these news stories do, as they always normally do. I had to scroll around for this one because they're all kind of out of order. Apologize for that. But Dolphins to sign linebacker Duke Riley and Brendan Scarlett. I want to get the smaller things out of the way. Again, I would reread this. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins to sign linebacker Duke Riley and Brendan Scarlett. Both of these guys, especially Scarlett, great against the run. I really like that signing. Under the radar type of a guy. Kind of like a Brent Urban, Morgan Fox type of a guy that doesn't get a lot of recognition, or even kind of like a Derek Wolfe in a way where they don't get a ton of recognition, but they're good at something. They're really good at something, and I think Scarlett's a good rotational guy who can help us be a little bit more physical on rundowns. And I think, like I said, he'll be a good rotational guy. He's really good against the run. And Duke Riley, great special teams player, and that's probably what he's going to do for us. Good in coverage as a linebacker, so he'll be more of a situational guy, I would assume, and he adds good depth there. If his name has to be called, I think we're not going to lose. He's not going to be like Philip. I'm sorry, guys, about the burp situation right there. But anyway, he's not going to be like Philip Wheeler or Darnell Ellerbe bad. He's not going to be that bad in coverage or that a liability like that where he's not going to be relied on that much. He's just good depth. So I like, and again, really good for special teams. And again, something that the Dolphins have done over the last ever since Brian got here, is really invest in special teams. You look at the Polarity signing; they signed a lot of really good special teams players over the last 3 years, and it shows on Sundays. And it's just one of the things that the organization just has done a great job of. Let's see here. Where do we want to go next? I think that's it for the smaller ones. All right, this is the last small one. Dolphins assigned running back Malcolm Brown. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Do we have really any stats that we want to share? Brown posted 4 yards per carry as a pro. He was obviously a backup the last 5 years of Todd Gurley. He had a career high of 419 yards rushing last year. He was also really effective in the passing game. And his total yards from scrimmage are a lot better than his rushing yards. So he's a guy that rotational back, special teams player as well. We'll see if he makes the team. Depending on, if you think about, we've got, we're not going to carry more than 3, I would assume. Ahmed, Gaskin, Malcolm, and maybe if the Dolphins pick someone like Etienne or Najee Harris in the draft, or someone else. We'll see what they end up deciding to do. But my point is the running back room is going to be crowded. And we'll see what they decide. Even Matt Breida is still on the team. So it's a crowded room. We'll see what direction the team decides to go in. He's definitely the least talented out of all of them. Like, if you had to rank them in talent level, he would be dead last. It's not even close. He's a good power back, and that's not something that the Dolphins really have right now. Ahmed and Gaskins are more of the balance. They're not really home run hitters, I would say. Even though Gaskin had that one run against the Raiders, I wouldn't consider him a home run hitter, though. They're just really solid across the board. And Matt Breida, obviously, is just really all he's good for is his speed. He doesn't do anything else really all that well. So, they don't really have a power back. So maybe he can find his role somewhere within that if it comes down to deciding between all of the different backs, because he's the most different and the one they don't really have, that type of a runner. So we'll see if he makes the team. I doubt he will. Or if he does, he's not going to see significant time as a running back. So we'll see where he ends up, where that ends up going. But I don't see a ton of production from him at all. But again, like I said, what he reminds me of? I was trying to think of New England running backs over the years. And I really couldn't find one that really fit him. Maybe a Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, but that doesn't really fit. I couldn't really think of one. He doesn't really remind me of... Sony Michel is a good power back, but he's nothing like Malcolm Brown. I couldn't really find a good comparison. So maybe someone in the comment section below can find a good rotational back comparison for Malcolm Brown. Because he's not like Garrett Blunt. He's not Steven Jackson. I can't think of a good rotational guy that he reminds me of. So, I don't know. For some reason, that just came to my mind there. Let's see. Where else are we going to go here? Where do we want to go next? All right, let's go here. Let's start getting to the bigger names. Dolphins sign cornerback Justin Coleman. Former Lions cornerback Justin Coleman has agreed to terms with the Dolphins. He'll receive a 1-year deal worth up to $2 million. The actual base value of the deal is not known here. Oh, okay, so this is... Hold on. Okay, sorry guys, but it's a $2 million deal. I don't have the exact numbers here for you. The Lions, the article goes on to say, I think this is important information. The Lions signed Coleman to a 4-year, $36 million pact back in 2019, but he only ended up making it halfway through that deal. His contract made him one of the highest paid slot corners in the league, but he wasn't able to perform at that level. A hamstring injury cramped his 2020 season to just 11 games. That defense was god-awful anyway. Obviously, the Dolphins have him for a fraction of his would-be $8 million deal. This is a really good signing by the Dolphins. A fantastic signing. I love Justin Coleman's game. He's a perfect... Not only, like the article read, is he a slot corner? So that's a huge need for this team. Not a huge need. Nick Needham is a good player. I wouldn't say it's a huge need, but there was competition there for a while during that, at least at the beginning of the year. There wasn't a clear-cut guy, and then obviously Nick ended up taking that role over and doing really well with it. And he's been very good, especially for an undrafted free agent. Very productive. But I think Justin Coleman, more talented. He's such a good player. I saw just as a very solid, really, I would say above average slot corner in this league. Physical, fits the scheme to a T. Athletic, great ball skills. He's not one of these guys that, like a Nickel Roby-Coleman, or maybe like a Ronald Darby, like these smaller slot guys that, maybe don't get their head around, they grab a lot. He's not that kind of a player. Just a really solid physical slot corner, and I would expect him to win the job from Nick. And unless we do, maybe Igbenogany gets tried out there, we'll see what ends up happening with that. But I think it's pretty safe to say that he's probably going to win the job. And I think and again, I don't want to slight Nick Needham because, like I said, he was a gem of a find, especially being an undrafted free agent. But Justin Coleman, I just really like his game, and I think he's going to bring a lot to this team. And again, in a division where you have the Buffalo Bills and they have someone like an Emmanuel Sanders or a Cole Beasley, where they have these guys that can move in the slot and be very productive, it's an important position to have. And I think Justin Coleman, like I said, fits the scheme. He's a great man press corner, physical, and like I said, in a division where a slot receiver, some of these, where in a division where you have to beat the Bills and even the Patriots with Julian Edelman, and if he has to match up with a tight end like Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith, I think it's not going to be a mismatch because of his physicality and the way he plays the game. So not only is he a great fit in the scheme, but he really allows us to match up with other teams in our division a little bit better as well. I think this was sorry, I don't know. In 2019, the first year he was a Lion, he had 3 forced fumbles, 3 pass defense, and an interception. This guy is very productive. Always, like I said, very good at looking back for the ball for such a physical player. And again, a bigger slot. He plays bigger. One of the more physical slot corners in the league. So, very excited about him. Another really good under-the-radar signing that I love. And I love getting these players that are going to be productive, that aren't, weighing the cap or salary cap down for 3 or 4, you're stuck to this guy for a long time. These guys are productive, solid players, and this is another one. Dolphins signed Adam Butler. So, obviously, if you guys don't know, Devon Gottschalk moved on to New England. He signed a deal with them, and obviously the Dolphins pretty much just traded defensive tackles with them. They ended up getting Adam Butler, who I think is a better player, and it's something that this team needs. He's a better pass rusher than Gottschalk was. He's probably not the greatest. He's not. I don't want to say he's better at run defense. I think Gottschalk's probably a little bit more physical, a little bit stronger. But Butler is really, really good. Where he excels and what really makes me excited about him becoming a Dolphin is his pass rush ability. And again, to read the article here, the Dolphins signed Adam Butler. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Adam Butler will reunite with Brian Flores, the former Patriots defensive tackle, has agreed to a 2-year deal with the Dolphins. The contract could be worth up to $9 million with bonuses. In 2019, he had a career year with 6 sacks. Last year, he registered only 4 with a watermark of 34 total stops. So, like I said, I think what he does up front, and he's so athletic, and this is something that's very important, and this is why Christian Wilkins is going to just get better in this scheme, is we do so much creative stuff up front that you have to have a defensive tackle that can move a little bit. And beat a guard across his face or beat a center across his face with his athleticism and really create havoc with stunts and stuff and movement up front. And that's what Adam Butler does so well, and he's going to pair so well with Christian Wilkins on third down. And I think the Dolphins might need to add another rotational guy to stop the run and be a little bit more stout on rundowns, and we're going to get into that later in the show. They're bringing someone in on a visit that could 1,000% help with that. But you have your 2 pass rushing defensive tackles, and if you put them on the field at the same time together on third down with Christian Wilkins and Butler, that's a super athletic pair at defensive tackle that can create a ton of mismatches. And it's just going to be fun to watch. Now, what the Dolphins need to do, and why I was bringing up the something we'll talk about later in the show, is the Dolphins need to get at least one more guy that can help on first and second down. They have that guy, and Raekwon Davis, who's really good at it, and was really, really good as a rookie at it, and he'll only get better, but they needed one more guy. And we'll talk about that later in the show. I don't want to go down that path right now. I want to focus in on Butler. But like I said, what Adam Butler does as a pass rusher is the reason I'm excited about him. And like I said, he's such a good athlete. And if you pair him with Christian Wilkins, the stuff they can do up front with those two is going to be so fun to watch. And then you add McKinney to the third down package. I mean, I'm really excited about this pass rush. And that's something that we've all talked about especially last year, playing the Bills, where it seems Josh Allen always has 1,000 years, to really upgrade the pass rush. And we haven't even had a draft yet. And to upgrade the pass rush like they have already, I think is something that fans need to understand. And I don't think that's something that fans are really taking into account. Is they really have done a good job of upgrading the pass rush with the McKinney signing, with the Butler signing, and some of the stuff that they can do up front. Van Ginkel coming along, Vince Beagle coming back. I think in McKinney, obviously, I think the pass rush is better than it was a year ago, and I don't think that's being talked about enough. And it just makes me super excited. I mean, this front is very athletic, and has a lot of versatility and it allows them to do a lot of creative stuff up front. And again, they haven't even had a draft yet. And sorry guys. And I do think the pass rush will be better, especially with the McKinney signing, than it was last year, with a lot of young players improving and some of the moves that they've already made. It just makes me super excited to see this front get after it when the season rolls around. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this next news story. This is a very interesting one that I want to kind of go in depth on, because there's a lot of different ways to look at this, and it's just kind of an interesting gamble on the Dolphins' part. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have signed Matt Skura. That's probably not how you say his name. I'm going to butcher this dude's name, and it is what it is. We'll just call him Matt. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens center. His history is interesting. And if you read up on it, because I really wanted to, 2019, he was having a Pro Bowl season. He tears his knee up, and obviously the Dolphins have... Let me back up here for a second. The Dolphins have a need at center. Ted Karras went to New England. Obviously, the Dolphins missed off on David Andrews as well. Whatever happens between them and Ted Karras is interesting, because that relationship kind of... For him to take that deal to be a backup is interesting to me. I don't know. Who knows? But the point is the Dolphins have a hole at center. They didn't get Rodney Hudson. They didn't get they didn't get David Andrews. Those are two big-time centers they missed out on that you would think maybe the Fins would have had at least some interest in. They end up settling on Matt, who has a lot of talent, has shown that he can be a premier center, but now let's get into this. 2019 had an outstanding season, one of the best rushing attacks in the history of the league, was on his way to a Pro Bowl nod, tears up his knee. He comes back the following season, 2020, fights his way back to the starting job, then has some issues, maybe some injuries were nagging him, maybe wasn't 100% healthy, had some snap issues, I think mid-season, I think he was 12 games into the year, and they benched him. And he's an interesting player with a lot of upside, and he's shown that he can be that guy. He can be a Pro Bowl center and be a really effective player, and he is more talented than Ted Karras by far. It's just, can he put it together? I don't think the health is a problem. If you look at his games played, and he's actually, I think this injury is not something, hopefully that continues to nag him. Because he has had a history of starting He started 16 games before. He's been healthy, is my point. I don't think this is someone like Jadeveon Clowney who's had this ridiculous injury history. That's not the case with this player. But it is a gamble, nonetheless. If they win on the gamble, then they're getting a Pro Bowl center for nothing, for literally nothing. They signed him. Let's get into the story. They signed Matt to the deal is worth up to $1 million. And again, he had snapping issues. Wound up getting benched for the other Raven center. But in the season where he was coming off his knee injury, he still made 12 starts. He had the snapping issues. We'll see what ends up happening. If he doesn't get the ACL injury, the knee injury in 2019, he goes to the Pro Bowl and was one of the best centers in the league at that point in the 2019 season. So, like I said, the whole thing is just a gamble. But the gamble does have a high risk because right now the center position on this team is very shallow, and we really don't know. Obviously Jesse Davis could play that position. Maybe Michael Dieter could play that position if it came to that. But like I said, it's a gamble. They could have a Pro Bowl center and he could have a crazy 2021 season, go to the Pro Bowl, be an above average starter, whatever it is. It's a huge win for the Fins to get him on this 1-year deal. If he cashes in on it and goes back to his 2019 form and is a great player, not only did we get an outstanding season out of him, but we have a center for the next, who knows, 5-6 years, however long he plays. So it's a big gamble. We'll see if it works, but a lot of upside on this. Like a lot of upside. Super talented. Probably the most talented center we've had since Mike Pouncey, I would say. Maybe I'm forgetting someone. But again, this dude has a ton of upside, and it is a big gamble. Sorry, sipping the coffee. But I think it could pay off big time. And I like the signing overall. I mean, they can still add depth in the draft or maybe get another player in free agency. Where do we want to go next? We talked about Duke Riley. We talked about Adam Butler. We talked about Malcolm Brown. Talked about Justin Coleman. Okay, let's talk about this player next. I don't want to get my players because there's 2 new stories. There's 3 new stories left that I'm very excited to talk about. Okay, here we go. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins are set to sign Jacoby Brissett. The quarterback market is really starting to heat up. Didn't need to read that. My apologies. Let's get to the stats here. Brissett will be signing a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. The former Patriot and Colts backup quarterback will sign for a guaranteed $5 million. So it's a 1-year, $5 million deal, basically, that can max out to $7 million with incentives. Not that big of a commitment. One of the best backups in the National Football League, was playing top 15 type of level quarterbacking before, obviously the year before Phillip Rivers got there, and then obviously things just kind of fell apart. Really couldn't do it on a consistent basis, and had a terrible end to his year on that particular season. But still, great backup. If Tua ever did have to miss 2 or 3 games, he could just easily come in and it'd be definitely I would say, a great backup quarterback. Definitely one of the better ones in the league. He would definitely be he could be and has the ability to be like a top 16, 17 guy. Whether he can do it on a consistent basis or not, that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about a guy who can come in on an emergency situation and give us a good game, and that's what he's more than capable of doing. So I'm very happy with this signing. And again, people want to bring up, and some of the things that I've heard is like, oh, is he the relief pitcher for the Dolphins? No, I don't think that's what this is about. I think this is just an insurance policy. If something bad happens, we're not going to lose the season. And I think any NFL team should have that on their roster, especially with a good team like we have now. We don't want another Brock Osweiler, Jay Cutler situation ever again, and I don't think any of us want to see that again. So that just kind of prevents that from happening. Imagine if Tua gets hurt and we're bringing in Jake Rudock from the bench. Like, no, that's going to ruin the season. So, again, I think this has less to do with the relief. It has nothing to do with the relief pitcher thing. I think Tua's, no matter what, unless it gets really bad, I think we're going to see... I don't think we'll ever see that again, is basically what I'm saying. And the reason I say that is because I think he's going to be a lot better this upcoming season. And I don't think he'll ever be in a situation where that's going to have to happen. Because I think the offense is going to be a lot better around him, and he's just going to be a better player. And again, I think this has more to do with this just being an insurance policy, not necessarily someone who's going to come in and spell him and, in case he's not hot on that particular day, like Fitz did. Yeah, okay, so we're now we're on to the big dogs. This is what all the fans wanted. This is what I wanted. Playmakers. And we finally got one a few days ago. And this is obviously the biggest signing yet of free agency. I think this is probably my second favorite move, though. I still think McKinney is probably my favorite move. But I still love this move. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins have agreed to terms with wide receiver Will Fuller. Let's see here. Fuller agreed to a 1-year deal to the Dolphins. A pact that will include more than $10 million. Incentives are present in the deal as well. So the deal is basically a 1-year, $10 million deal. Will Fuller had 879 receiving yards, 16 yards per catch, despite only playing 11 games. And again, had the PED issue last year. Whatever that was about, I don't think. Hopefully, that's not something that we're gonna have to, like it's Martavis Bryant level or who is another player that would constantly get suspended. I don't think it's gonna be something that's gonna haunt him. So I don't think that's something that Fins fans have to worry about. It's more so the injury history isn't all that great. But when you compare him to players like Curtis Samuel, who also has not the greatest injury history, or even someone like Juju Smith-Schuster, his numbers are the same, if not better, if you look at all of their numbers, especially if you look at the numbers coming off last year. This is a guy who in his rookie season had 7 touchdowns in 4 games. He's had a 200-yard receiving game. He's had dominant performances. He just can't stay healthy, and he can't, consistently healthy. This is a supreme deep threat, a top 4 to 5 guy in terms of being a deep threat, has the potential to be a top 2 to 3 guy if everything works out. And that is invaluable. Underrated in the quick passing game as well. He was really good, especially last year, in the screen game, which I think is important, and really just stretches the field and adds a ton of speed to the team, and could not be more happy with this signing. I think this is obviously, like I said, add as many playmakers as you can around Tua, and this is a player that isn't samey. This isn't someone who's going to come in and be like a Devontae Parker or a Preston Williams. He's going to be different, and he's going to add something different to the offense, and that's an element that the team did not have on a consistent basis, which was a consistent deep threat, which Jakeem Grant never was, because he was never really a really polished receiver. And again, and I want to reiterate this: this is a guy who's had 7 touchdowns in 4 games. So this is a very talented player who has the talent to be one of the best 2s, if not a 1 in this league. Definitely, I think the thing that he brings to the table that's special is his ability that he could be a 2 to, the second or third best deep threat in the league. He's never going to be better than Tyreek Hill, but he has the potential to be one of the very few in the league that can do what he does, if he can just stay healthy. And if we get 14 games out of him like the Texans did last year, that's good enough for me. That's all I really can ask for him. And again, the touchdown numbers are really good. And again, he adds something and his yards per catch is amazing. And he adds something to the team that the team didn't have before. And I think that's super important. And you look up and you look at the draft, which has not even happened yet. The Dolphins have the 3rd and 18th pick in the draft could get the Slim Reaper from Alabama. Obviously, Devontae Smith. You got Jamar Chase from LSU, who's a fantastic player. You could go Kyle Pitts, run the two, get some 2 tight end sets out there, be a little bit more creative with your personnel. I think the Dolphins still need to add another playmaker, but you line him up with, let's say it's a lineup of Devontae Parker, Will Fuller. You add Kyle Pitts in there. You can Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith. That's one of the better units in the division in the AFC East and one of the better units in the league. And I think that's something important that this team needs to understand. And I think the franchise needs to understand. Make Tua's job as easy as you possibly can. And I think that's what the Will Fuller signing does. And I think that's what the Fins have an opportunity to do with this signing and some of the things that they can do in the draft. And I hope that they do that. I hope they add at least one more receiver. Or just at least another playmaker. Maybe it's Pitts. Maybe it's Najee Harris. Just add another guy that is a premier talent. And I think the sky is the limit. And again, I don't want to repeat myself a ton of times, but it is important. It's important. It's so important. And that's something that this team never really did a good. Tannehill never had Calvin Johnson or anything like that. But he always had a good to a little bit above average receiving core. He always kind of had that. His offensive lines are what failed him in the end of the day, and bad coaching. And it's been a while, and you can even make the argument with someone like Dan Marino, who never really had a Hall of Fame running mate, at least at the skill positions. It's very important that this franchise surrounds Tua with as much playmaking as they can. And like I said, they have an opportunity to take a premium guy in this draft with, whether it's Jamar Chase Pitts or Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle. I don't think they'll do that now with Will Fuller. But I think all of those guys have the potential to be something special. And I don't think they can pass on that. And even someone like Najee Harris, who I think is going to be a superstar. So they have a great opportunity to really completely renovate this offense into something totally different and really complement it with a very good defense. So we'll see what they decide to do in the draft. But the possibilities are endless, and just it really, really sets it up to just be a home run, to be honest with you. Oh, all right. This last news story, which is also really exciting, and hopefully they can get the deal done. The Dolphins are set to host defensive tackle Lawrence Guy. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Brian Flores is once again trying to recruit one of his former players to Miami. The Dolphins are set to host veteran defensive tackle Lawrence Guy on a free agent visit. Guy bounced around the league in his first 6 seasons in the NFL, spending time with the Packers, Colts, Chargers, and Ravens. He landed in New England in 2017 and has been a consistent starter for the organization over the past 4 years. The former 7th rounder has started 60 of his 62 appearances for the Patriots, compiling 235 tackles, 7 sacks, 27 quarterback hits, and 16 tackles for losses. So this guy is a I gotta slow down, sipping coffee a little bit too much. But a really good run defender, and especially someone who can come in on first and second down with a Scarlet. I'm just thinking of lineups. You throw in Raekwon Davis and him. You got Bernardrick McKinney on the team, who's also a really good run defender. This team not only is a better pass rushing unit, but it's a way better run defense, especially if they make this move. If they make this move, this team has a better run defense than they did last year as well. And that's just scary. I think and again, I don't think people really realize this, but the defense really is, especially if they make this signing, I think it will be better than it was a year ago. Which is crazy to say. But with the Coleman signing, with Lawrence Guy coming in, hopefully, they add Adam Butler. They get Bernard McKinney in a trade. They Scarlett, who's a good rotational guy. They still have the draft, and we'll see what they end up doing with that. Free agency is obviously not over yet. I just think the defense is getting better. And again, with this signing, I think, again, not only does this signing help us in run defense, but it allows Brian to be more multiple and the rotation to be better. And I think, and obviously to have better depth. And again, this guy is not going to be someone who's a 3-down guy. This is a rotational player who is very good at what he does. And that's hard to find. That's what really gets me excited about him potentially being on the team. Okay. Let's move on to the fan Q&A 35 minutes into the video. Or to the podcast, excuse me. And we have 18 questions. The energy's getting low, ladies and gentlemen. The sun is getting low. It's getting real low. I apologize. But hopefully we can keep the energy up. This first question comes from Kid. He says, I think Preston Williams is the most in danger of losing his job, especially if we draft another receiver in the first 2 rounds. Thoughts? I mean, no, I wouldn't say that. I would say probably someone like Jakeem Grant would probably come to mind. I mean, they still have Albert Wilson. They still have Allen Hurns. I don't think Preston Williams is in any particular danger. I could easily see him being the 4th guy. I mean, if you think, let's say Devontae Parker, Will Fuller. I mean, Lynn Bowden you got to throw in there too. I don't know. It is a crowded room. But I don't know. I wouldn't be worried about Preston Williams. I think the feeling you get around from reading, from the beat writing group or the beat writers, and if you keep up with Dolphin stuff, you get the feeling that Preston Williams is, they like him. I just don't think I couldn't see him getting cut. This next question comes from Jan Hammer. He says, "How many more times are you going to call for the Watson trade before you finally realize it's not going to happen?" I mean, I don't know if I'm calling for it, but if it happens, I'm going to be happy about it. I don't really understand why people are so against it. I cannot imagine someone not wanting Deshaun Watson. I think that's a stupid thing to really. It's like denying a year's supply of ice cream or something like that. It's like, why would you? Why would you not want Deshaun Watson? Some of you say the 1st round picks. We can bring up a lot of examples of, not a lot, but especially in recent memory, where the 1st round picks didn't really affect the team. You think about Chicago, they did it. They had 2 playoff appearances. And granted, the NFC wasn't the greatest last year, but that's a normal NFL year, especially with the 7th seed. And obviously, they almost beat the Eagles in the playoffs and advanced there. They obviously did the Khalil Mack trade. The Seahawks with Jamal Adams. I'm not saying, and again, you'll be like, well, they have Russell Wilson. Or what was the other example? Jared Goff is not a good one. Obviously, with the Rams, with the Ramsey. Adams trade, they haven't had a 1st round pick in 4 years. So it can be done, and especially in recent history, it has been done, and it has been successful. If you get Deshaun Watson, if you're adding Deshaun Watson to a 10-win team, okay? Let's just say he's added to the team now, and we don't get two 1st round draft picks. The offense is not that bad. It has playmaking on it. They just added Will Fuller. It's not a bad offense at all. The offensive line I expect to get better. So I just don't understand, and again, this is just a disagreement. I don't understand how anyone can say no to Deshaun Watson, especially Dolphins fans. I honestly don't understand it. I think it's crazy. That's just me, and I'm sick of talking about it anyway. I say the same thing over and over again. It's just a difference in opinion. I'm not upset or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm sick and tired of talking about it. I don't want to talk about Deshaun Watson anymore. because we say the same. I say the same thing every time we talk about him. It's just I just have a different opinion than other people, and it is what it is. Who cares? I don't care if he goes to Denver. I don't care. I don't care. I have no stake in this game. I think whatever happens for this team, and I've said this a million times, whatever happens, whatever direction the team goes in, they're going to be successful. And again, we'll move on. I don't want to talk about it anymore. This question comes from Kid. He says, with the news about Albert Wilson, and John Hammer, I'm not mad at you. Just every time you start talking about the Deshaun Watson situation, you just get frustrated. And, I don't know. Let's move on. This next question comes from Kid. God, this coffee is hitting me. And I gotta take a breath. Alright, this question comes from Kid. He says, with news in Albert Wilson that Albert Wilson is staying on the team, tell us, guys, who will wear 15? Great show, dude. Keep them coming. I appreciate that. Who will wear 15? Who would I like to wear 15? Albert Wilson wore 15. Who wore 15 last year? Did someone not wear 15 last year? I swear someone wore 15. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. Lynn Bowden, I think, is a good 15. He's a good 15. So if I had to pick one, or Brissett would be a good 15 as a backup quarterback. This next question comes from Kid. He says, what does it say about our front office that we're willing to take risks on troubled players but not willing to risk big money on proven free agents? Willing to take risks on players. I mean, I guess Will Fuller, I don't know if that's a risk. I mean, he was still productive last year. If we can get 14 games out of him, I think we'll be happy with that. And the rest of them, I guess the Skura signing, they wanted David Andrews. Whatever happened with that obviously fell through. So I'm not going to blame him too much on that. I think the silver lining to this is you could potentially get a player that's a Pro Bowl player that for $1 million. So, and that's something New England did a lot. And I trust Chris and Brian's eye for that. In terms of seeing something in a player that might not necessarily be a popular pick, and getting the most out of them. So I think I don't think you have to worry about that. And I don't know necessarily what it says about the front office. I think if it works, then I think what it says about the front office is they have a good eye for these kind of things. And I think you have to have a great eye for not just talent in free agency, but where is this player's career going? Like, is it going in the right direction? Is it are we going to continue to see good things from this player going forward? Or are they, kind of getting out of their prime? And I think if this works, then I think what it says about, like I said, about the front office is they have a good eye for free agents. And a good eye for talent. This next question comes from Dog. He says, do you think we should trade down or stay at 3? Sorry if you hear the dog in the background. Should we trade down or stay at 3? It's such a tough question to ask because you don't know who's going to be gone at that point. If you trade down, you don't know. I don't know how the board's gonna fall. So I don't know. It depends. I mean, it really does. And again, if you're asking me, should we just accumulate picks? We already did that. And I think just take Jamar Chase. To me, that's the best outcome. This next question comes from Mark. So I guess the answer is no. Don't trade down. This next question comes from Mark. He says, will we be... Oh, sorry. Let me restart. Jeez. This question comes from Mark. He says, who will be our first pick in the draft? I say receiver. How about you? Could be Pitts or Sewell. Or could Sewell be the top pick? I don't know. Who knows? I'm happy with Pitts. As long as it's someone that Tua can throw to or hand the ball off to. and they get someone like that in the draft, that's actually one of the premier guys, and there's a handful of them, I'll be pretty happy with it. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, I'm not a fan of the Will Fuller move, especially at that price. Thoughts? I would disagree with that. This guy, I think people forget how talented he is. And if you can, and again, he has the potential to be a 2 or 3 deep threat in this league. Like, that good at what he does. And again, this is, like I said, if you look at the numbers, that backs it up. This is a guy who, in his rookie year, had 7 touchdowns in 4 games. That's insane. Okay, so he's capable of being a special receiver, and it's really health. It's not even consistency that's gotten in his way. And again, he gave the Texans 14 games last year. If it wasn't for the suspension, he would have played more. So I like the move a lot. Very super talented guy. This next question comes from, and you're not tied to him for a long time. This next question comes from Alpha. I think this, and here's one thing I will say, Alpha, before we move on from the Will Fuller thing. If like the Galladay thing, and I would not, if and especially what ended up happening with Galladay, there's no way I would pay him a ton of money for a long-term deal. That just doesn't make any sense. It's not smart. If you look at Juju, who signed a bargain of a contract, and you look at Curtis Samuel, like, I would have much rather, if you had all of those deals in front of me, I would have much rather had Will Fuller for the 1-year, $10 million deal than have Kenny Galladay and what he ended up signing for and what Curtis Samuel ended up signing for. Again, if you look at their numbers, they're all very similar. And I think, again, Will Fuller's talent is underrated. This question comes from Alpha. He says, any last-minute free agency moves you would like to see? Maybe Melvin Ingram, if they can get him on a cheap deal. Lawrence Guy would be nice. Like, someone like that, I would say. I had, like, one more edge guy. There's a couple out there that are pretty good. And it seems that the free agent market is a lot lower than I think a lot of us thought it would be. This next question comes from SM. He says, if the Fins can trade back and grab a 2022 first round pick and are still able to draft Devontae Smith and Travis Etienne, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy. That's a major injection of speed onto the team. I do not like Travis Etienne. I just don't like the way he plays the game, but I love Devontae Smith. So, yeah, that would be pretty awesome if they were able to do that. This next question comes from Diaz. He says, hey man, did not expect Will Fuller, but super excited to see Tua utilize his versatility. Any chance we keep Fuller long term, we could easily part with Devontae Parker after this upcoming year. I especially think this is likely if we draft a receiver this year. So, I don't know if I said this, but that question came from John Diaz. That question that we just read. So the question is there any chance we keep him long term? It depends on what he does. I mean, I think there's a good chance we could keep him long term, but it all depends on what he does this year. So yeah, I would say there's a good chance. I like the chances of that happening. And the whole Devontae, yeah, it does give you a little bit more wiggle room if Devontae Parker ends up leaving. You're not tied down to him, and you give yourself a little bit more to work with there. This next question comes from SM. He says, do you think anyone will be banging the table during the draft for Gators tight end Pitts? He ran a 4.4 today. I don't know if anybody saw that, but that was pretty impressive. People have compared him to Gronk. He's nothing like Gronk. And Tony Gonzalez. He's nowhere as physical as Gronk, and he's not as good after the catch as Gronk was. Tony Gonzalez is an interesting. I would say, yeah, his game is definitely closer to Tony's than it is to Gronk's. If we trade back to 7 or 8, and there's a run on quarterbacks, and we miss out on Chase and Smith, adding Pitts and putting him on the other side of Mike Gesicki would be a hard thing to defend, right? Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. As long as we get a premier talent as a playmaker, I'm okay with that. And I think he's definitely one of those guys. This next question comes from Alpha, who says, who would you rather take, Najee Harris or Etienne? Najee Harris at 18 or Etienne at 36? Najee Harris at 18. It's not even close. Not even close. I think very highly of him. So, this next question comes from SM. He says, other than wide receiver Wilt Fuller, who is a former teammate of Watson's, the Dolphins haven't done much as far as big splashes in free agency. In my opinion, Miami has not went out of their way to obviously go after Watson, but it sure looks to me that they are filling gaps in the roster while saving money in case they don't have draft picks because they have been traded. Thoughts? I don't think this free agency necessarily leads to or preparing for not having picks. So I would disagree with that. But it does give you that if they want to go down that road, they could from the moves that they've made. This next question comes from KC Fanatics. Do you think we will have 2 or 3 quarterbacks on our 53-man roster, or opening day roster? And what do you think? We talked about Jacoby earlier in the video, KC. I don't think we'll carry 3 now. This next question comes from Richard. He says, I forgot about the Isaiah Wilson. Yeah, who cares about Isaiah Wilson? Not a very intelligent human being. Let's just put it that way. He just didn't make a lot of smart decisions. Decisions. Isaiah Wilson is another Demetrius Underwood and Mark Walton. I mean, I don't know. Mark Walton, he's not even that, dude. Like, he has messed up pretty bad. Like, on an insanely... I've been so far away from the mic this entire episode. I hope... God. I hope everything turns out okay. Skaggs, if Finns take a quarterback at 3, would that blow your mind? A quarterback at 3? It would probably be Justin Fields, as Wilson and Lawrence will be gone. If they take Justin Fields at 3, I will... I don't even want to think about that, dude. That would be so stupid. I don't even want to think about that. This next question comes from Adrian Gonzalez. He says, Skaggs, whom do you like in the remaining free agency market? I like, Perryman's gone. Fournette possibly adding to our... No, I think the draft we will address running back. Of course, draft both positions anyway. Do we need Patrick Laird? We do not need Patrick Laird. Who do I like? Melvin Ingram or Clowney. I think those are the 2 guys that I think stick out to me. There's a lot of good corners, but Justin Coleman, I think that ship has sailed due to that move. So I would say probably, like, the 2 edge guys that I like the most that are still there, I would say Melvin Ingram and Clowney. I think those 2 guys could come in and be really, really, really productive. And kind of spaced out on the fan Q&A, guys. I'm sorry. Don't know really what's going on. Been away from the mic. Didn't even realize it. I hope, hopefully this episode came out well. Super excited about the moves and cannot wait for what's to come. This offseason's already getting off to a good start, in my opinion. Like I said, I was kind of lukewarm on it, but actually going through them all, it gets me excited because I like a lot of the moves that they made. But anyway. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Very excited to see what the Dolphins continue to do and very happy with what they've done so far.